In the last hour with the minority, Mr. Smith, we asked you about folks that were interviewed during the course of your January 6th investigation. I think we talked about Mr. Giuliani, we mentioned Mr. Meadows, we mentioned Vice President Pence. An individual that I failed to ask about was whether you interviewed Director Kash Patel as part of your investigation with the Special Counsel's office.
I can't get into that because of the Judge Cannon's injunction.
Okay. Did Director Patel testify before the grand jury as part of your investigation?
Same answer.
Can you mind saying that just for the record, to make it the record clear?
I cannot answer that question due to Judge Cannon's injunction.
And did Director Patel assert his right against self-incrimination as part of your investigation?
Can't answer that question.
In general, just using your years of experience as a prosecutor, are you aware of any prohibitions that would prevent Mr. Patel or Director Patel from disclosing his own testimony if he did testify with the Special Counsel's office?
Just as a general matter, not specific to anything with this case, my understanding is the witnesses can disclose their own testimony.
Thank you. Mr. Raskin?
Mr. Smith, do you believe that the Supreme Court's decision on executive immunity constitutes an exoneration of President Trump's conduct in the months and weeks leading up to January 6th and on January 6th?
No.
Would you just explain that for us, why you don't see that as an exoneration for what he did?
Sure. I understand the Supreme Court decision. If I just go back for a second, this was an issue we litigated in the district court. The district court agreed with us. We litigated it in the Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals agreed with us. We litigated it in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court majority did not agree with us. They took a view of executive power that was more expansive than what we argued. I disagreed with it for the reasons we set forth in our brief and the reasons stated by the dissent in the case, Justice Sotomayor. But it is the law of the land. And what my office sought to do in responding to that was to follow the law and see, do we still have a case? And I think the evidence that we had after that decision remained powerful. I talked earlier today about state officials who put allegiance to the country before party. Those officials from Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, all those. I'm sorry.
Georgia.
All those witnesses, right? All those witnesses would still be available to us. The heart of our case would still be available to us, and I think it's important to know that. Well, you know, our view was that he abused his authority in the Justice Department to effect as one way to effectuate this scheme. This was about him as a candidate trying to say he won an election he didn't win, and so having to frame this in that manner, obviously it limited some of the evidence. That's why we had to supersede the indictment. But I don't think it was an exoneration because I still believed that there was substantial evidence that would allow us to prove the case beyond reasonable doubt.
Someone can be guilty of a crime in a factual sense, but still be immunized from prosecution, right?
Well, I mean, that's getting sort of like theoretical or metaphysical. I mean, if the court says that that's not a crime, then it's not a crime. But in our case, our view was that that ruling excised a certain portion of our proof, but all the charges we brought, we felt were still valid. We felt we still had a lot of evidence to support those charges.
Right. Did you have any questions? But I wonder if you would answer a question based on your experience as a war crimes prosecutor. And I don't know whether over the course of your long and distinguished career you've come to articulate a difference between ordinary crimes, run-of-the-mill crimes, and crimes that have some kind of world historical significance. Perhaps so, perhaps not. But I wonder if you do put war crimes, for example, in a different category from, say, for example, robberies that you've prosecuted, how you would think about classifying the crimes that you had investigated and were prepared to prosecute related to January 6th and the attempt to overthrow a presidential election.
So I think as a prosecutor, how you go about investigating those cases and make a decision to prosecute those cases, in my view, the principles in the robbery case or in my early career domestic violence case, those are the exact same principles you'd use in the most terrible war crimes case or in the work I had as special counsel. You follow the facts and the law. Nobody's above the law. You treat everybody the same. Applying those principles in more complex cases requires experience, and it's one of the reasons I felt I was qualified to do this job. But the principles, I think, remain the same. In my view, my personal view, is that the difference is the harm. Domestic violence case is awful, should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law, but generally there's one victim. War crimes cases that I've worked on can affect an entire country and entire culture. I think, and this isn't just me, the Court of Appeals in this case, when we litigated it, said that if the things we alleged were proven, it would amount to attack on the structure of our democracy. Those aren't my words, those are the court's words. And so whether a case is of that import or of less, I think you go about it the same way, but obviously the consequences for our country are quite different.
Have you made any statements, or are you willing to make any statements on the firing and removal of Department of Justice prosecutors who worked on January 6th, on people at the FBI who were involved in the FBI investigation, or on the president's mass summary pardon of 1,600 January 6th insurrectionists and other people involved?
Yeah. I think what has happened to career prosecutors and career FBI agents is awful. It's contrary to the rule of law. It's contrary to who I think we are as a country. One of the agents on our case, he served his country overseas multiple times, war zones. Family of dedicated public servants, wife's family, dedicated public servants. He got fired for doing his job 2 weeks after his wife died. I went to the funeral. I saw his family. I saw a church full of public servants. No reason a person like that should have to go through that. And I'm getting emotional. I'm sorry about that, but I just think that's wrong.
Well, thank you for your service to America and to the Department of Justice and the people.
Following up on that a little bit, if individuals are fired or lose their jobs simply for taking part of an investigation into someone who is an authority figure or in a high position of government, how does that impact our democracy?
Well, if you take the position that you cannot work in the federal government unless you have a political allegiance to the president, I think there are many harms to that. Our country tried that in the past. It's called the patronage system. And what we learned in our history is, and this would be, if it's a Democrat or Republican, would not matter. But what we learned is that those systems are rife with not only corruption, but with incompetence. Because the people who have these jobs, they didn't get them because of merit, because they dedicated their career to learning national security law, to learning how to properly investigate a case. They got their jobs because they're loyal to a particular person. That's not fair, but it also makes for people who really don't know how to do the work. And so I think that's a danger to the country. It saddens and angers me in the short term, but I think there are great costs to us long term if that's the direction we go in.
I'm going to pull on that last bit of your answer, if you don't mind, the damage it could cause long term. Do you mind elaborating that a little bit, especially as it relates to, recruiting the talent to the government, to public service who actually has the knowledge and the specialty and the competence to do the job? What types of dangers do you see if this continues?
Well, I've just seen career prosecutors who have served, again, Republican and Democratic administrations over and over again. These are the knowledge sources in the department in different areas. These are the people who mentor young lawyers. And when you take them away, those young lawyers don't have anybody to learn from. My experience in the department, again, doesn't matter the administration. These are not partisans. They're people who have decided they don't want to make a lot of money. They're not looking for fame. They just want to do good work. And I think when you lose that culture, you lose a lot.
Speaking of, sections within the government or within DOJ specifically that have particular skill sets and knowledge, I want to talk a little bit about the public integrity section, or PIN. That's come up earlier in the majority's hours, but what's the mission of PIN?
The public integrity section was formed after Watergate, and the section litigates complex corruption cases around the country. It does some of those cases on its own. It does, or at least during my time there, it also does cases in conjunction with, in partnership with local U.S. Attorney's Office, bringing expertise about some of the issues we've talked about today to them. And it also is a sort of clearinghouse for expertise on these issues, like the speech or debate clause or things of that nature.
Does the public integrity section play a role in checking potential abuses by DOJ as it relates to investigating members of Congress?
Well, in particular, I think it's valuable for prosecutors to make sure they get things right. They're the sort of keeper of these issues, and they're the people you go to make sure you're doing things the right way.
I guess, are you aware of some of the firings or dismantling that's been going on with the public integrity section since the beginning of 2025?
Yes.
Do you